Hey guys, how's it going? Kripparrian here. Today I want to talk about the single craziest card we have seen probably ever. But before that, on the last Boomsday Project card review video, you guys thought my green screen was off. It's not off. I'm part of the Boom crew, okay? The fact that I had to explain that in the last video was the saddest thing I've had to do in a while, okay? See, this is normal. We'll just do this normal for now, okay? Maybe you guys are happy now? Okay. Now, the card I want to talk about is Whizbang the Wonderful. Yes, this is a real card and it's actually coming up in the Boomsday Project. It's a 4-mana 4/5 that really his stats are completely irrelevant except for evolution effects, and it will actually be pretty interesting when we get this card off of an evolution effect because it's the only time you'll be able to attack with it. You'll be able to hear the sounds, and I imagine you can maybe bounce this back to your hand. I imagine it has a play sound. It's going to be probably about as rare as, a Doomsayer attacking or something like that. Is this it? Did I miss it? Yeah, pretty interesting stuff. Now, the core of this card really spiked a lot of discussion, and I know there are other Boomsday Project cards out there to be reviewed. Today I want to dedicate this video just to this card because, well, it's a very interesting topic, and honestly, it just deserves being talked about. So, how does the card work? It's a 4-mana 4/5, but it doesn't matter. It has these on start of game effects. So basically, if you put this in your deck, it just becomes a different deck. It becomes a different deck at random, and it randomizes the deck from the deck recipes that are currently in the game. Now, each class has 3 deck recipes. There's 9 classes, but the first deck recipe is almost always like a classic, majority classic infused deck. So I'm assuming that's the deck that's not included because that deck is almost always garbage compared to the meta decks at the time. Classic set just does not keep up. So I'm assuming that the 18 decks that it chooses from are the 2 deck recipe decks, excluding the classic one, from each of the 9 classes. 9 times 2, 18. That's how we get 18 decks. So basically, you can have a deck with just 29 whatever cards you want. You put Whizbang in there, you queue up a ladder game, and you are just playing randomly one of the 18 currently available deck recipes. Pretty interesting, right? Well, certainly so. And it is just the craziest card just from the effect. I think, though, it is the single worst card ever. But we'll get to that in a second. People are really stoked about this card because you just get this one legendary. If you're a new player, perhaps you get this legendary and you can play, so many different deck recipes, and some of which are very good. And that's the key there. So in the background here in the next few minutes, you guys will see scrolling through the deck recipes, and you will kind of get an idea of the power level of this card. Yes, some deck recipes are really good. Some deck recipes are not so good, and you don't get to choose which of those. It's totally at random. So on some games you'll have the good deck recipes, on other games you'll have the bad deck recipes. Overall, people think this is a card that's designed for new players, but I think it's a little bit more complicated than that. I think this card, if anything, it's designed for kind of like the casual Hearthstone player who doesn't spend very much, but wants to explore the cards that are offered each time a new expansion comes out. And with that, yes, it is absolutely wonderful in the sense. Now, the reason I say that is a new player is going to have a hell of a time figuring out all of these different decks. So there's going to be 18 decks here. You get one at random, and the deck recipes that Blizzard has given players, they reset each expansion, by the way. So sometimes we'll have better ones, sometimes we'll have weaker ones. Overall, the trend that I've seen is deck recipes are generally better over time. But what's important to know as you're seeing the decks behind me is that most of these decks have a heavy synergy base, have a heavy synergy background. And as a result of that, it's very difficult to understand what you're playing and how you should be playing it. And, if you think about let's say one of the deck recipes is a Shudderwock Shaman. As a new player, if you're playing with these cards for the first time and you don't even draw Shudderwock when you start the game, you literally don't know how you're supposed to set up that deck to win. So the core of the issue here is these deck recipes are overall not that great. Some of them are very good, but some of them are really bad. And the average is pretty bad, okay? So you're playing with, on average, a pretty bad deck, but new players are not, it's going to take them so long. It's going to be overwhelming to learn how to play 18 different decks well enough, know all the cards in them, know the matchups of every single one of those decks, kind of like memorize the deck list so you can know the win conditions. I think I would have a trouble playing this card effectively. Giving it to a new player sounds totally insane if you're going to expect any kind of results from them. And I put this in a phrase when I was talking about it on stream the other day. I think if I had a brand new account and I somehow opened Whizbang and my goal was to do well on ladder, I wouldn't play it. I'd just make like a bad Face Hunter, maybe a bad Zoo Warlock deck. Those seem to do the trick pretty well on a budget. Yes, there's always some exceptions that exclude those two, but my point is if you want results, if you want to do well, if you want to encourage a new player to learn the game, I think we should not steer them towards Whizbang because it's going to overwhelm them, and a lot of these decks are not good. One of the decks that you probably passed now is like Freeze Shaman. As an experiment, I played Freeze Shaman. I played, I don't know, maybe slightly under 10 ladder games. It felt impossible to win. Like, some of these decks are horrid. Some of these decks, you randomly, start playing one and you can't beat anything. There's literally nothing that can almost ever lose to a Freeze Shaman on ladder right now. You have to get stupendously lucky to even have some kind of chance. So, sometimes you're going to give a new player a deck like Freeze Shaman that an experienced player has absolutely no chance of winning with, and you're giving it to a new player who doesn't even know how the deck works, doesn't understand the synergy at the start, doesn't understand the matchups. What are they really going to learn from playing a deck like that? So that's kind of what I want to talk about. This card is great, but it is really not designed for new players. It is designed for Hearthstone enthusiasts that don't have quite the necessary wallet to keep up expansion after expansion. Now, this can change in a dramatic way if Blizzard is more active about changing the deck recipes, if Blizzard is actually including, decent versions of meta decks in the deck recipes. If you've seen the deck recipes in the background, there's like a good Paladin deck, there's a good Warlock deck, and maybe there's a good Hunter deck in there. Maybe there's one, the big Spell Mage is pretty good. So, maybe a quarter of the decks are actually quite good. But honestly, a quarter of the decks you can't win a single game with. And the others in the middle require a lot of perfect plays, a lot of understanding of the game, its mechanics, and memorization of the synergies, combos within these decks. New players have no chance of doing that. But I think if you are one of these players that every expansion you want to just dig in and experience what Hearthstone has to offer this time around, Whizbang is the card for you. If you are a casual Hearthstone player, look, I know not all of you guys watching play Hearthstone every single day of the week like I do. I understand that. So think about it that way. If you really want to explore all the different mechanics, if you want to learn all the different decks of each expansion when they come out, you don't actually want to pay for too many of the cards or the packs, Whizbang is actually a great craft. Now, also be understanding that because of the natural variation of deck quality, you are still going to have a very difficult time getting the results that you want. But maybe you have Whizbang, maybe you try Whizbang this expansion, maybe you like it, but you don't like it enough to spend a bunch of money. Maybe there's no deck you really want to play, but maybe next expansion comes around and you still have Whizbang, and you play a Whizbang deck and you get to see the 18 deck recipes that Blizzard has made for that expansion, and perhaps you find a deck or two you really want to play, and maybe you can, invest in some packs, get the deck that you've liked playing, and continue playing that way. I feel like Whizbang is the card for enthusiast Hearthstone players who play a bit casually from time to time, but are really into the game, are really into the community, are really into watching videos like this one, streams, whatnot. And it's kind of like playing a teaser, the shareware version of Hearthstone in one card. That's what I feel Whizbang is, and yeah, I'm saying that because I know there's a number of you guys in that category, so you should not miss this card. If you're in that category, this card is in fact a must craft. Now, if you're not in that category, please be understanding. Please do not recommend this card for new players. If your friend wants to play Hearthstone for the first time, do not tell them to craft Whizbang unless you think they're just having a little bit of fun on the side and don't care about winning and all that. But look, I've been playing Hearthstone for a while. Most people, when they try a game for the first time, they care about winning. For now, that's it. Hope you enjoyed my review. Hope you guys are growing your excitement for the Boomsday Project. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.